Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm delighted to be hosting this post-match on a 3-1 away victory in Europe for Celtic against Feyenoord. I am joined by Stephen Ray and Ryan Pearce. But, gentlemen, before I bring you in to talk about your thoughts on that, I think it's always good when we have a result like tonight that we get the immediate thoughts of the supporters as they join us. So I'm going to start with that. And Kevin McGonigal comes in just to say yes, which I think probably sums up how we're all feeling at the moment. David Boyle comes in to say Martin sealing his legend status. And yes, I do want to touch on the O'Neill effect tonight. Kurgan comes in with probably far too sensible a point for this post-match, but say heads didn't drop after we conceded. That motivation comes from the manager, which I think again is something I want to touch on. I think that's Mark Seenan. So proud of the team's performance. Yep, we're going to touch on what that performance was like. Try and break it apart as we can. We'll bring the guys in. And Kurgan 88, you can back in again to say this is a European team we know we can be just so frustrating. Yeah, we sometimes don't show. I agree with that. Emerald Abroad comes in. What a performance from some unfancy players. Yeah, we might have to touch on the lineup tonight. Albert Kidd 86 comes in. Heartwarming result. Well done, boys. Michael Barry comes in to say Donovan brilliant, but needs to work into the wins. Harsh but fair. But I love that. You know, that's good. And then Dylan Podrick Pierce comes in to say, what a result. Let's draw a line under this and take things up a gear. Top of the league at Christmas, trophy in the bag and mid-table in the UEFA League. Look, we do have to take positives tonight. Ryan, I'll start with you this time. That was, I mean, it's blowing our predictions out of the water. We both suggested we'd take and probably be happy with a draw. But in the end, we've come away with a very comfortable victory. It was disciplined. It was organised. I think, you know, one of the comments earlier is really important. The heads didn't drop, something we've seen, so they were showing that mental resilience. That's not only a good result, but I think that was a result the performance merited.
Yeah, no, I think so. There were moments I commented in the Acsom chat that the beginning of the second half when the Feyenoord supporters were just whistling, they were chasing our shadows. We were just playing the ball around, keeping control of it. It got a little dicey. We knew there'd be moments they came at us, but it was a professional performance. It's nice to see how well we can adapt. A lot of players playing out of position today and doing well. So it was encouraging. I mean, I'll take an away win in Europe any day of the week. I don't care how we get there, but it was nice to do it with a relatively assured performance. One of the better ones I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it has. We don't often get to celebrate wins in Europe, let alone wins away from home. Look, we'll be realistic. We know that Feyenoord are not in great form, Stephen, but neither are we in terms of European performance this season. And you know, with the challenges we've got within the squad, there was something just very, very organised and disciplined about Celtic tonight. I think we did what we had to do to win that match. And is that maybe a telling element of the effect that Martin O'Neill's brought to the table?
It was mature. It was full of self-belief. But when I seen the lineup before kickoff, it had a feeling of Ange Postecoglou away to Bodo Glimt feel about it. It was almost as if he had half an eye on the weekend just with some of the selections, but every selection he made was justified. You know, it's actually, on paper, that was probably the hardest game we had to this point in this section. Obviously, we still played Roma, but it's an unbelievable performance. And I know Feyenoord are not in a great place at the minute, but it's 3-1 away in Holland, you know, so that's unbelievable. You excuse my dogs have started going mental. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And then my ring doorbell goes. Yeah, it's kind of thrown me a wee bit. The fact that Martin O'Neill's signing off with a 3-1 win in the Netherlands, you know, after that one 24 years ago, it's quite the story, to be fair.
Yeah.
And apologies for the background noise. My wife decided to go out and let the dogs go nuts.
not at all. I'll just you know, it's usually my dog that's getting a bit quiet tonight. Yeah, I mean, like, I think, you know, we've spoken about the issues the squad have faced. There's a lot of key positions missing through injury. We've lost a lot of quality through player sales. And when you look at a lineup, you see Yang on one side, you see McCowan on the other side. You're looking at young Kobe Donovan, for example, coming in to play right back in a European game. And actually, I would have to say, I think all three really justified their selection tonight, Ryan. I mean, Yang pops in with a goal. McCowan, although may not get the direct assist, was a huge part of some of the positive attacking play, and a very big part of that, our first goal. And, Kobe Donovan, I thought, continues to look like he absolutely merits being part of this first team squad at a minimum. If not, pushing for a starting spot. A very mature performance from a young player, and certainly when you consider the more experienced and tenured players he's playing alongside, he doesn't look overawed. He doesn't look like a weak link. So there's some fantastic positives to take out tonight. And again, I want to go back to the kind of Martin O'Neill effect. And we know that Martin O'Neill is likely to, if speculations to be believed, Martin O'Neill is likely to play or manage his last game for Celtic in this tenure at the weekend. But he's really brought more than stability, I think. He's brought a sense of, as Stephen pointed out, he's brought a sense of self-belief within this squad. We're hoping that any manager who comes in after Martin now can capitalise on that and really continue this hopefully upward trajectory in terms of the mentality and the belief within the players.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes with O'Neill's approach, because I can even sense in this game, I was trying to figure out, is it a 4-3-3? Is it at times it looked like a 4-4-1-1? But one of the complaints that we had with Brendan and some of the poor performances we're having is the system never really changed, or at least from our supporters' view, the system didn't seem to change so much. So I can envision that exact same lineup in a with Brendan and players being expected to play differently. But the example you gave of McCowan, he didn't necessarily have as big of an impact of some of the other players, but he had a good game. But you can see he was being used as a central midfielder that can play wide, but wasn't necessarily hugging the wing and expected to take his man on. And then Engels was playing in a position to support that, and then Donovan was playing in a way to support it. So it's the system was tweaked to get the best out of the strengths of the players. And when we say that they're coming into a confidence, someone like McCowan saying, okay, I can play my game, I can play to my strengths because I know the system is organized in a way to do that, versus I'm being told constantly I'm not doing it the way the system is working, and then you just, at some point when you just go, I guess I don't know the system. So to me, that's been the biggest clear difference. Is it's when we bring players on, when we switch things around, when we kind of do some tweaks and we put players a little bit out of position, changes are easily noticed by someone like myself that doesn't have the stats whiz of someone like Alan Morrison. I can still see with my own two eyes, okay, I can see how we're tweaking how we play based on where the players are on the pitch. And that's just great for confidence, great for the performance, great for the results. And I hope it continues on into this next phase of manager that we have coming in.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of the individual performances we saw there, because there are a lot of members of this squad, Stephen, who've came under a bit of scrutiny. Not just in this season, but actually even coming into the prior season. One of those, I think, was Arne Engels. Now, Arne Engels, I thought in the first half, it took him a while to grow into the game. But then, certainly as we move to the latter part of the first half into the second half, he starts to become more influential in the match. And we start to see some of the qualities that we know he has, but we don't see maybe often enough. Things like playing the ball from the back, the passing from deep, the threaded ball that he played through for Tunekti towards the end of the game. I think that deserved a better finish, actually. Maybe we can excuse Tunekti, having only just came on, but we want to see more like that from Engels. We want to see players actually play to the strengths that they have. And I think, I thought it was a great team performance. I was pleased to see some individuals. Yang was another one. Engels, who we've mentioned. Players really coming to the forefront and showing what they can do at this level. I
thought Engels grew into the game a lot. I think he's a much better player coming from deeper in midfield alongside McGregor. I think the two of them play well. I think the problem Engels has had is he was the big outlay on the back of selling Matt O'Reilly, who was a goal-scoring, assisting machine. And he's just not that type of player. You know, he's the kind of player that can play long passes. You know, there was a pass into Tanecki, which was an unbelievable pass, which Tanecki should have done a lot better with. You know, and he's got a wee bit of devilment about him. There was that one where we lost the ball in midfield and it looked like Feyenoord were going to break and he just took the guy out. You know, basically took one for the team. So definitely need more of that from him. I think it's a consistency problem and try to find his best position. I know Alan Morrison has spoken about him potentially playing more on the right as a, you know, in this new system that we're probably going to play under the new manager. He may find himself in more of a right wing back type position, but you know, I thought he was excellent tonight. I thought McGregor, you know, him and McGregor pretty much controlled the midfield. Yeah. I think with Bernardo, and I think people see Bernardo as more a defensive midfielder, but I don't. I see him more as a number 10 or an 8, you know, sort of ahead of the sort of two central midfielders. And Engels, I think people have mixed him and Engels up in position-wise. I think Engels is definitely better from deeper when he's got the game ahead of him. I don't think he's as good with the game where he's got to play, he's back to goal. So, yeah, there was a few. I think it was quite clever to have McCowan out on the right. You know, he wasn't asked to play like a winger. He was almost asked to play like a central midfielder taking up a right midfield position. You know, it was
like a flat midfield, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was more about control as opposed to trying to take on your man. I think they'd more wanted Yang to take on the fullback, you know, than McCowan. McCowan was more coming inside and sort of playing shorter passes, so it was quite a clever move. You know, I was wondering where he was going to play before kickoff, but you know, I thought he had a decent game as well.
It certainly seemed to be effective, yeah. Now listen, we cannot talk about Yang in loan terms without referencing Ewan Boy Martin. Ewan Boy Martin is the founding member of the Yang Gang, right? A huge supporter of the channel. So we have to bring him in, and he says, my boy Yang showed tonight what I knew he had: power, pace and skill. His best game ever for Celtic tonight, and he must start against Hibs. Look, I think that there were definitely a lot of things that he did well tonight. I thought his running was great. We spoke, Ryan, earlier on about his pace, that he has pace to burn and he can get to the byline. He's a player who can make things happen. Interestingly enough, and I don't want to upset you, and I also saw the side of his game on a couple of very rare occasions tonight where, you know, there's still some concerns. You know, he's not great at stopping the crosses coming in. I don't think defensive discipline is necessarily his strength. But then if we can play a system which doesn't necessarily depend on that side of his game too much, you know, this is a good opportunity for a player like Yang. We know he was potentially on the way out. There is a new manager coming in. It's, you know, it's a form of a clean slate for a player, right? And he may, you know, have been unhappy with the lack of minutes. He may have been unhappy with the system of play that he was playing under previously. Now with a new manager coming in, he may, and possibly this could apply to other players, but they may revise their decision and decide, actually, for the betterment of my football career. And Yang's, you know, very much in the infancy of his football career. They may view Celtic as being the best place for them at this moment in time.
I mean, that'd be great. It would be great to kind of reassess as many players as we can. I mean, I know we have a lot of several players that are out on loan that are doing quite well, and so the question is, where do they come into it? Or are we just kind of writing them off? But I would say this is easily his best start for Celtic, because on when I think of times in the past where I've seen Yang make an impact, it's always kind of coming on the 60th minute or the 70th minute, and you're dealing with a tired team, and he can come in and run at players. So for him to do it, you know, from the start and do it from a position in which we had, you know, we conceded first, it showed a lot of character, and you could see him, you know, again, confidence growing into the game. So it just comes back to me on the tactical approach. It has gone from how do I mold these players to fit my system, and now it seems to be, how do I create a system that gets the most out of the players I have? And that's why I see so many of them flourishing so much, which is great. And the question for me is going to be, is our $5.5 million outlay now the fourth best left winger at the club? Which, you know, how do we how do we address that and make the most? Not to put a negative spin on such a great night, but I mean, if Yang is getting game time and if he is showing promise, we have Jota coming back. Tanetki has shown signs. Yang is doing well. Like, where does Balikwisha come into this? It's there are some things that Nancy, if he is, which it really seems like he is, the guy coming in, he's going to have to try to figure out to get the most of.
Yeah, and does that element, Stephen, for you, is that why it is important that we allow Nancy to come in to not only assess the players that he's going to have at his disposal, but also, as we approach the January window, he may be able to identify areas that he wants to strengthen. Is it important that we give the new manager, if it is to be Brother Wilfried, as he seems to be coined at the moment, is it important that we give him that opportunity to, have that initial assessment, maybe take in a couple of games to see, what qualities he got in his disposal in different positions, and then he approaches January and is able to give a clear set of requirements to the recruitment team or the board, whoever it may be that's making the decisions, because what we've got here is as Ryan points to, you've got a player like Balikwisha, and this is nothing personal against Balikwisha. The circumstances have worked against him in terms of the move so far, but he's currently sitting on the bench. He was a big outlay. He was a target for the previous, under the previous manager for X amount of years, whether it was by the manager's design or not. Now he's potentially going to face his third manager this season, coming into the club. And it's a tough position for a player like that to have to prove himself again to another manager, when he probably, upon signing terms, thought, I'm going to be the first choice.
I think everyone gets a clean slate. I do think it's too far gone for some players. I know Yang's had a great game tonight, but I think we've seen a body of evidence that he's just too inconsistent. I think he's a kind of player that if he beats his first man at the first go, he probably will have a good game, which he did tonight. But I've seen him in games where the fullbacks had him in toast and he's just not made any contribution. I mean, I think from memory, he came on in the home leg against Bayern Munich quite late on and he made a big difference in the game. But, because he'd beat his man first time and it was almost as if his confidence just grew, massively. So, but I do think the manager will have give everyone a clean slate. I think some of the players that are in the amber zone, if you want to use what they're talking about over at Rangers, I think they've probably got a month, and I think there's 9 games before the transfer window opens. So, I think Balikwisha, what I don't understand about that signing is we've signed him as a winger, but he was playing in a midfield 3 as part of a 3-5-2. He was playing almost like if you look at Nancy's sort of setup, the 3-4-2-1, he was playing as one of the two, for Antwerp. So it seems a strange signing, to be honest. I just don't think he's comfortable left wing, if I'm honest. So I'm hoping it's a completely clean slate for him and for Bernardo and a few others in the team that look as if they were possibly out the door. The thing is whether Maeda is definitely heads totally 100% gone out the door, as much as he had a really good performance tonight and worked really hard. Hatati's the one, that's I'm not sure where he lies. He showed tonight what he's capable of, but is he just one of these players that maybe been with us, when we talk about recycling players and when Ange says don't get too attached. Has he overstayed his stay is the question, I suppose.
And it's a difficult one because, again, a new manager might come in and think, wow, he's a much better standard of player that I thought I was going to get. But you may not be in the player's best interest then personally to stick around. So it will be interesting. Ryan, Stephen touched on Maeda there, and I want to talk about Maeda because Maeda was getting a few comments on both the pre-match and the half-time. He's protecting himself. His head's out the door. He's not going to play. I thought Maeda today. I thought he'd put any questions about his commitment to bed because he was chasing back every single ball. It was like a Jack Russell Terrier chasing the ball all over the park. He was just after everything, and he went back. He did his role defensively, and look, he may not have got amongst the goals tonight, and actually probably didn't have too many clear-cut chances. But what he did do is he pressed their goalkeeper into making mistakes, and 2 of which led to goals. The one for Hatati the eventual one where he cuts it back. Beautiful assist and a great finish for Benji Negrin coming in. So, again, we've got this concern that if Maeda does go in January, for example, that's a hell of a player to have to replace. So it's a big, big challenge on the manager straight away. What did you make of his performance tonight? And would you prefer it if we kept a player like Maeda under any new regime?
Oh yeah, I thought he was. Didn't, from a striker's perspective, didn't get as many of the opportunities to kind of showcase that, and whether that was his positioning or the runs he was making, or just the team not finding him. But like you said, 2 goals were from Maeda doing something that Maeda does best. And then there were moments late in the game where he was just, running back, chasing back. How he has that much energy, we will never understand. That man needs to be, studied by science. It makes no sense. But I would prefer to keep him. It's such a unique player. And I feel like there's a way, if it is going to be that 3-4-3, whether it's as the focal point, whether it's as one of those 2 inside forwards, I think there's a lot of opportunity for him. And it's a unique dynamic. And to compare to a similar player in the first Martin O'Neill era, it was kind of like the Didier Gat situation.
Yes.
He wasn't the best winger. And then at one point when I think towards the latter part, Martin was going with more of a 4-4-2 with Jackie Mack on the left and a Gat on the right. And it was just
my all-time favourite Celtic fullback.
I actually
watch the run to Seville and you see the amount of assists he provides.
Absolutely.
For someone who can't cross the ball.
So what was amazing is I was actually in Edinburgh at the festival the year we signed him, and I think he was with Hibs for 2 months. And he scored a wonder goal, and I just happened to get tickets to that Hibs game. I was at that game where he scored that wonder goal, and it was just back in a time when you can sign a player who just signed for a team outside a transfer window and do it so quickly. But he to my earlier point about Martin O'Neill's approach of tweaking a system to get the most out of players, he tweaked the system to get the most out of Didier Gat in a way that anyone else that tried to play him as an out-and-out winger wouldn't necessarily get the same results from it. So, but yeah, Maeda, I really hope he stays. It's just, and I hope he can look at the Kyogo situation, look at what happened with Jota, look at some players that they see that the grass isn't always greener when you leave Celtic. And if the risk is, do I make the move now and really put a big risk on my ability to participate in the World Cup come the summer, or do I stay put and then give the new regime time to kind of show him what he could be as part of this team? I hope for him he sees that as the smarter play.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think you make a great point in referencing the World Cup. That's surely got to be a big consideration for players' minds, not only players who are at the club, but potential new recruits as well. And as we know, I think Maeda, I can't speak from any authority here, but I believe Maeda is still very much part of the Japan squad at the moment, very much at the forefront. So he is, his international aspirations can and are being met at Celtic, which is something I think we should continue to push on. We've spoken, Stephen, a little bit about the effect that the manager has had, tweaking things, as Ryan said. I often talk about the fact that I think some players can be overcoached, and I think Martin O'Neill's maybe removed that element a little bit and is more trusting players to play to their own ability. Is there a concern, though, and I don't want to take away from the positivity of tonight's result, but is there a concern? We're starting to see a team gel very, very well under Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney, and then we're bringing in another manager. As highly rated as Wilfried Nancy is, for all the good faith that many supporters have about the appointment, is there a chance, though, that it could have a counter effect to the progress that we seem to be making under Martin O'Neill? Is that something you're worried about, or do you think this is the right time to introduce a new element?
I think if Nancy comes in 3 weeks ago, I think there's potential for problems. I think Martin O'Neill's been given a month to basically turn. We've clawed Hearts back quite considerably.
Yeah.
We've won away in Europe for the first time in 4 years, something like that. We're in the cup final. I think it's probably the best time to take over. Part of me thinks that tonight was partly the players saying thanks to the manager for, they were just given absolutely everything, and they were not going to lose that game tonight. It would have been so easy to lose that game from losing an early goal the way we did, but they hung in there, and kept playing their football, as Ange would put it, and it's an unbelievable result. But I do think now is the time because I think the players need certainty. The players need that. The ones that maybe thinking about leaving in January now know they've got 9 games or so to turn it around if they really want to stay, but they need to get games. And also, we spoke about the World Cup coming up. This is a huge transfer window as well coming up. So the manager needs time to evaluate what he needs. People say it's hard to get players in January, but there'll be players wanting to go to the World Cup that are not getting the minutes that they need, who could be ideal for us. There's countries that our league seasons have just finished, that players maybe in the MLS, South America, some of the Scandinavian countries, their league seasons have just finished or just about to finish. So there's potential for getting players on board with that. I think Sunday's probably the right time for Martin to, basically say, I've come in, I've done what you've asked me to do. If anything, he's overperformed, given the squad. I think he's done an unbelievable job. Ultimately he's had one really bad half, and that was away to Midtjylland. The Simon games are a crap game, to be honest, but games after international breaks are never normally great. Plus a lot of the Scottish boys were probably still on it in the Friday. so but then ultimately we got the win and Hearts dropped points. So I definitely think now's the time. I think he's left the squad in as good a position as possible. If I'm being honest. Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense.
He's actually bailed the board out big time.
Oh yeah.
He's certainly, it's probably unfair to refer to him as such, but he's certainly that kind of break glass shield type of appointment, wasn't he? Because he brings such a legacy to the table. But, and it would take a hell of a lot for, I think, the support to completely lose faith with Martin O'Neill. So it was you'd have to say it was quite a savvy appointment by the board. But I think, as you've said, Stephen, I think all of us would probably accept that he's exceeded expectations in terms of what he could do with this squad. I'm keen just to bring in some more comments, just again to get some feeling about the performance there. Let me just see a bit of comments there, which I seem to have lost. There we go. So Mr. C comes in to say the appointment of a new gaffer has to proceed. This is about the future. Let's not wait for it. Yeah, I think that's a good. That's a good comment. Ryan Celtic Boy comes on and say Martin O'Neill gives Celtic CPR when nobody else could have at that moment in time. He walks away into the sunset wishing he was younger because he's loving this buzz. Well, you hope that he's taking some individual and personal pride from it, that even after all this time he can still walk in there and be as influential as he has. And I think we need to probably give Sean Maloney a little bit of credit as well. It sounds like he's playing quite an active role. David C comes in to say that was brilliant tonight. What a lift seeing an away European win. Yeah, I think probably at this point it's not quite sunk in what we've achieved tonight, lads, because it's been such a long time, and there were certainly moments in that second half where I felt as though we were a little bit under siege. But you expect that in Europe. What I liked tonight, Ryan, I think in particular, was that we kind of rose to the adversity tonight. We were under pressure at times. We went a goal down, we came back, we then gave away a few silly passes and they created opportunities. They hit the bar, they forced the keeper into a good save in the second half, but we kept our shape and we kept our head, and we didn't look rattled, which is something I don't think you could necessarily say about the players under the previous regime. It always felt like when we faced a bit of pressure we'd crumble. We didn't see evidence of that tonight. Tonight we looked like we were mentally tough tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we've all had the experience in the last 5-10 years of whenever we concede a goal away in Europe, the thought in our head is the next one's coming in the next 5 minutes. And so we started the game well, I thought, and for us to concede that, it was nice to see us kind of grow into the game, and I think improve from that moment on. So that level of resilience is critical, and I how much it's been built in by Martin O'Neill. I mean, you look back to the Seville run, you can argue that we, in all those ties, we had better performances away from home, Blackburn away at Anfield and some of the other performances. So it's something I hope we can continue to show, because we haven't had Fortress Parkhead like we've had in the past in Europe. So if we are going to progress, we need to be able to play our game and hold our heads as we go away, and not crumble when we concede goals, because we're going to concede goals away from home. And I've seen a little bit of that last season too, under Brendan. So I don't want to just not give him as much credit there. So it's nice to see this shift. It's nice to see signs. There will always be games like the Michelin game where we'll concede a few right in a row, but it's nice not feeling that if we can see, like, we have to go in there and hope they only nick a goal after we score 3. We can actually have some resilience against conceding early and come back and win the game, because we've shown we've done it today, and we've shown it a few times in the past. We can do it.
Absolutely. We have indeed broken a European duck tonight, and we looked good doing it. I guess you would have to say, on basis of the result, a comfortable 3-1 win. We've broken a couple of other ducks as well, Ryan. I'm hosting and we've won, which is great.
Yep.
Paul John's hosting it bad and we've won, so that we've put that one to bed. So that is now on record. We can win games when those factors come into play. Listen, we have over 2,500 strong. What is a relatively unsociable time for a football match. So really appreciate everyone sticking with us. Appreciate everyone putting up with me and not Paul John on the hosting. So really appreciate your support. Some great comments throughout the night and great analysis from both Stephen and Ryan. And it's been a genuine pleasure tonight, lads, to be able to enjoy a European win in Europe away from home for the Hoops. Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for supporting and following and continuing to join us on Acsom. We hope you join us again tomorrow at 12:30. We'll follow the analysis on the match and also try and address some of the events that are hopefully leading to our new manager coming into play. But for the moment, it's been a great night for the Hoops. Hope everyone's enjoyed it and hope everyone has a great night. Thanks again. Hail, hail.
Yeah, hail.